To a conversation with Glenn Hughes. I'm your host, Eric Miller. This is part of the Pods and Sods network. I want to thank you, first off, as always, for clicking the download button or the subscribe button or whatever combination of buttons you clicked in order to find this episode. It's always very much appreciated. It was cool chatting with Glenn. He's he's a he's a wild card. He's a fun guy. But an inspiring guy, an uplifting guy. We get into his story, through how he connected with music and into Deep Purple, his friendship with David Coverdale, what it was like in Trapeze, and, then his solo years, which he's documented quite a bit. I do ask him about the John Norum record because that one in particular interests me. We also go into his Black Country Communion, what's the state of that, and at the time we recorded this, he didn't have the announcement for the new solo album out yet, but it's been announced. It's called Resonate. He's a bit coy as I ask him about it, but it's now been officially released as Resonate, coming out in November. So, yeah, we cover a lot of ground in this, and, he's got an interesting journey of, redemption or healing or however you might characterize that, but and a lot of joy as a result of that, which is undeniably on display almost at all times. So like I said, a real thrill to chat with Glenn, and without any further ado, a conversation with Mr. Glenn Hughes. Gives me great pleasure to welcome the legendary Mr. Glenn Hughes. Welcome, Glenn.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well, Glenn. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me. You have one of those careers that's just massive, and obviously we don't have time to cover everything, but I do want to talk about a lot of stuff, get to a lot of stuff. Kind of going back to the beginning. As a kid, do you remember when you first knew that you wanted to be a musician? Like, was there a single
that would have been, I've said it so many times, because I missed the Elvis years and the Bill Haley stuff. I missed that sort of archival Americana stuff from the mid 50s,
right,
to the early 60s.
Right.
What happened was I came home from school one day and I was watching black and white TV, and this band were playing, and it was the Beatles, and I'd already been playing trombone for 2 years in the school orchestra, and I could read music, and I was named after Glenn Miller, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But as soon as I saw the Beatles in black and white, and I heard, Love Me Do or something, I knew that what I was hearing, not so much what I was seeing, but what I was hearing was my soul calling me. It was, this is the art form. I was studying to be a journalist at school.
Okay.
But I knew that what I was hearing would be my art form.
Right.
And I asked my mom if I could, if it was possible that I could be worthy of getting an acoustic guitar for Christmas.
Right.
Which they bent over backwards for, and they got me an acoustic guitar. And I learned how to play guitar, and slowly but surely became, no one is, the article they want to be when they're that young.
Right.
But I immersed myself in the art form of music, about being a musician, about sleeping with my guitar, about generating everything about music around, being able to formulate chords and different chords and watch other musicians. And I was very blessed. Very blessed.
Nice. And it was, I read that you were a big Stax and Motown kind of guy.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Only because in the mid-'60s in England, you had Hendrix, who's an American guy, and you had The Who, and you had the Kinks, and the Beatles, of course. The Beatles had already been broken up at that point. Mm-hmm. But, you had, the Beatles hadn't broken up till 68, but, that syndrome of Brit rock, before Zeppelin and Sabbath and Purple. But my girlfriend's brother ran a discotheque, an all-night discotheque, and I was only like 14, and I stayed up and got him the coffees and the Coca-Colas, but all he played was black American music. And what is a man's world? This is a man's world. And I heard Wilson Pickett, James Brown. I heard Otis Redding, and the music got into my bones and into my blood.
Awesome.
While other kids at school listened to Bob Dylan, I was listening to Otis Redding and Wilson Pickett. And, of course, Stevie Wonder, who later became my friend.
Right.
So I was heavily... you could talk to any other artist and they'll tell you exactly who influenced them, But I can never lie to who influenced me. Detroit was, etched into my heart,
Right. That's awesome. I just recently had Steve Cropper on. So have you ever had any chance to work with those guys or any?
No, man, but I'm a big Steve Cropper fan because I'm obviously a Booker T fan, and Steve, in the Mafia there, he's less is more. Steve Cropper, that's where I come from, the less is more thing, and Steve Cropper was that kind of guitar player, and long may he live, man.
Yeah, hear, hear. Moving on a bit, speaking of great singers, obviously you connect with Deep Purple and you come in the same time as David Coverdale, and, a lot's been said about you doing sort of co-lead vocals and stuff like that. As far as joining that band, did you guys have sort of an instant bond as the new guys at the time?
Amazingly so. I had been touring from 70 to mid-73, non-stop with Trapeze, basically in America. We were living over here, and we were based in Texas. And I had been playing at first, of course, the clubs, and then at the end, in 73, Trapeze was selling 10,000 tickets a night. So I had, with my own music and my own, guys, created my own stance, And David, when he came in, he joined about 7 or 8 weeks after I did. He had not had any success. He had not really been on tour ever or really done anything. And I think what David did with me, he latched on to me, and because, he loved my work in Trapeze, and we were both Northern Englishmen.
Right. And
we found each other as with the new guys in Deep Purple, and we kind of formed this I wouldn't have joined Deep Purple if I couldn't sing some songs. I think you know the story. So they said, okay, fine. And David and I, we went about doing the Burn album it was like, oh no, you sing that first verse. Oh no, I insist you sing it. No, you sing it.
Right.
It was that way inclined. The whole album, the way you hear it, was two guys fighting about who should. No, you take that verse. No, I'll take the end. And it was like so nice, getting out of each other's way so somebody could get to the microphone. And that's what it was like all the way through with David. We never fought about who should sing what, who should sing not. You know, I never complained that I didn't get to sing a solo song on Burn. All I wanted to do was sing some stuff with whoever was going to be the singer.
Right.
You know, and it just so happened that Dave was so gracious and so kind and loving. And I thought Deep Purple at that time, if we would have gone the route of having another guy that sounded like Ian Gillan, it probably would have been worse for the band. I think it was way better that we had two guys coming in that sounded nothing like Ian, and you had two lead singers. I think it was a pretty bold move from Richie Blackmore to want to do that.
Yeah, two distinct, solid, powerful voices, to say the least.
Again, very different, because David is I would call him a very baritone sounding. You know, David's got a very insanely great, like on Soldier of Fortune, his voice. He's really good down there, and of course, me, I'm right up here. So it's like you got the two of it. It's like if you don't, it's kind of funny because we call each other the unrighteous brothers, you know, because it's like
right.
it's like the righteous brothers, like the one with the low voice, one with the high voice. David and I have been the best, like I said at the Hall of Fame, we've been the best of friends for 43 years. We've never fallen out. I need you to know, Eric, I really do love singing with people like with Bonamassa. I love singing with Joe, and it always works out for me. I always try and get other people in the band to sing with me. You know, I mean, Joe and I, you know, I think we sang more on Black Country One. You know, I'm going to try, you know, because BCC are making another record in January. I'm going to try and get Joe to sing more with me. I think we sound great together, you know.
Yeah, no doubt. How was it in terms of writing, fitting in with Purple? Because you know, obviously, you know, Trapeze was, you know, you were very active in that. It was more of
very active. You say writing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Writing. It was. We wrote on Burn, although it doesn't say on the album. We wrote as a band. I won't go into detail on why I couldn't put my name on the album. But I'm just telling you something that you probably already know. We wrote in a dungeon. If you can imagine, Eric, 5 guys going into a 15th century castle in the middle of the UK,
right,
and writing 9 songs in a dungeon. I'm talking about a dungeon that's 600 years old,
right,
or 500 years old. You can imagine, we had no songs going in, and we came out with those 9 songs, and it's like we wrote looking at each other and scared out of our minds, because when darkness came, we had to get out of there because it was so scary. So we wrote those songs as a team in that dungeon. And remember now, this is the first album since, you know, Who Do You Think We Are? Then there's a gap, and then here they come. The world doesn't know anything about the new Deep Purple, and here they come writing this Burn album. And I thought it was a remarkable first record for me and David to be part of.
No doubt. Why that location? Was that by choice, or was that kind of inflicted on you?
I honestly, I have to own up. I have no idea who came up with that choice. I think we were the first band to go to Clearwell. I think Zeppelin went there after us.
Right.
I knew the owner. He was a big Deep Purple fan, and some reason he got in touch with our management, and it was a place that we could lease, right, for a month.
Gotcha.
And they had the servants in all the, you know, the outfits and stuff, and it was, you know, like, you know, it was like living in the, you know, 500 years ago, and Blackmore loved it, and it was very creative for us.
That's cool.
Because when you, you know, leave your girlfriends and your wives and, you know, blah, and your mums and dads, and you go down on the Welsh border in Gloucestershire, and you're in a castle, you know, something came out of that worthwhile, you know.
Yeah, that's certainly.
And I think, hey man, you know, Burn was a very important record for Deep Purple. It was a very important record for. Forget that it was Brian and David's first album, but I think as a brand, it was an important record for them to make after Roger and Ian were no longer in the band.
Critical, yeah. It could have gone either way in terms of longevity.
Could have gone either way.
Yeah. I want to ask about sort of the end of your initial tenure there, and moving into your solo. So that run kind of ended in '76, and then Play Me Out would come out in '77, which I want to ask about a little bit. But where were you? You weren't ready for that to end. So kind of where were you emotionally?
I tell you what, the funny part of it is I lived in LA, and everybody else lived. Me and Tommy lived in LA, and the other guys. At the end in Liverpool Empire in March of '76, I guess David, John, and Ian sort of got together after the show and said, I'm kind of done. Where are you done? They were all they were done, and Tommy and I flew back to LA, and we were never told that the band had broken up. So
right.
When I flew back to the UK in April of '76 to attend Ian Pacey's, or it might have been May, wedding. David said to me, "So what are you going to do now?" I said, "Well, I'm getting ready to record the next album." He said, "What album?" He said, "Well, I've left the band." And I went, "Oh," I started to laugh because, to be honest with you, I think we all knew, you know, towards the end of that English tour that we'd run its course.
Right.
I think every band knows when it's time to step away, and I think it was the right thing to do to walk away from it, because I was longing to do a solo album, and I was also longing to reform Trapeze,
Right.
which I did for a summer run in America in '76. You know, it's funny to look back at it now and the way it all ended, but we never actually sat in a room and actually shook hands and said it's over. It was sort of like comedic,
Right.
falling out. It was really sort of like, oh, we're not a band anymore. Okay, well, that's
Right.
okay then, so I can just move on.
And I mean, what a great thing in a way, because you had Play Me Out in '77, and that, you know, as far as stylistically, that, you know, you went for it in terms of the funk and the soul.
Oh, you know, Eric, Play Me Out for me, it was Bowie was going to produce that. Bowie had been living in my house for half the year in '75 when he was making Station to Station. But I was writing those songs when Bowie was at my house, and he was going to he was looking at producing it, and he didn't produce it, so I was left to produce it myself. And it was anything. It was not Deep Purple sounding music. It was very much a Glenn soulful solo. I played most of the instruments, and it's like I have to get it out of my system. I completely understand when solo artists want to do something completely different.
Right.
So, and it was a time for me when I'd been in a hugely successful band, and I just wanted to make something that was completely Glenn solo-wise. I didn't want to make a Deep Purple sounding record.
Of course.
You know, so hence me using horn players and, you know, girl singers and using Mel and Dave from Trapeze. It was a very soulful record.
From the start, you keep rocking right on. You keep me strong. You keep me strong. You make me steam along. Smell my baby.
in terms of the solo years, there's kind of a long break between Play Me Out and then, your next.
Yeah, let's just call those the. And in my book, I talk about it. I honestly don't remember. I'm not trying to get a joke here. I don't remember the '80s. I know I did Hughes in the '80s. I did Seven Star, and I did Phenomena.
Right.
I don't remember too much about them. Let's just say I was behind enemy lines. I was not the man I am today.
Right, understood. I was curious about one record kind of in that era. If you have any memories of it, would be the John Norum record. To me, that one, I love that record.
Yeah, that would be right.
That was
this
like
is
90,
funny enough. That would be 1990.
Right.
Right.
90.
That would be the fall of 1990. Or was it 89?
I want to say it was 90, maybe even 91. It
was 90. You know why? Yeah. I was about to go to Betty Ford. So, and I went to Betty Ford in the end of January 91. So John's album was recorded in November 90.
Right.
That was the last album I wrote as the other Glenn.
Right.
Glenn High Glenn,
Okay.
So, there's nothing. People ask me, is there anything you'd like to change? Look, I don't want to talk about the drug stuff, and I don't want to talk about the missing Glenn years, but because it made me. I mean, I've had a heart attack, and I've had this, and I've had surgery, and I've blah blah blah. I'm a survivor. I'm thick-skinned. You have to be thick-skinned to be an artist in these times, because the chit chat that goes on behind the scenes,
Right. Oh yeah.
I know what I do is a gift given to me, freely given to me. I'm so grateful to have been given this gift,
Yeah.
And to have the voice that I have been given, and I take care of that voice. I'm like an athlete,
Yep. Let me sort of put it to you like this, if I may. So the John Norum record, the Gary Moore record, I imagine in those years there's probably a lot of.
Oh right, Gary Moore. Forgot about that.
Like there's probably a lot of conversations about, hey, we should put together this or we should do that. So like through those years, let me phrase it like this: through those years, if you look at those things as first dates, is there any of those that you would wish you maybe had a second date with? Does that make sense?
You mean the band, the stuff I did in the '80s with?
Yeah, like boy, I wish that John Norum thing would have went further, or I wish I'd have done another record with Gary. Or
Eric, I think this. How do I say this to you? Although I may have been a different man back then, I've always been a man that has never chosen them. I've never put the god of money before the god of art for me.
Right.
I've never bowed down to the god of money. I've never bowed down to the almighty dollar. I've never done anything for money. I could have made a hell of a lot more money doing things with other people.
Right.
To this day, I'm driven by my music. John Norum was one of my best friends for 5 years before we made that album.
Right.
Otherwise, I probably would never have made it. And the same with Tony. Tony Iommi was like a friend of mine since 1970, and he took 14 years before we made, Seven Star. So it's like I'm a guy that works. You might see me on an album and go, "Why is he doing that?" Well, he's my friend.
Right.
So it's like, So as I said, for me in the '80s was like that's the period for me that a lot of people talk about. And I honestly, truly, Eric, don't recall a lot of it because it's not that I'm embarrassed by my behavior. It's just that I honestly don't. People say to me, "Do you remember that time you were over my house? You took all off your clothes."
Right. Right.
I get it all the time, and it's like, "Oh fuck, here we go again." I have to make my amends. Somebody had to go at me on Facebook for something I did in 1989 in some bar in fucking Marietta, Georgia.
Oh boy.
I had to make amends to this girl last week. I'm saying, "I'm so sorry. Accept my apology." It's like, oh my God. It's like, But what I'm getting to is that I've known that. And one thing I wasn't when I was 22 was wise. I am definitely a wise man. You can imagine what I've been through. I am, for all intents and purposes, a singing writer, singer-songwriter, musician, plays a lot of instruments, and produces, and I do that from myself because I know who I am now. I know, you know that I like R&B. You know that. You know Stevie Wonder's my mentor and my friend, but I am Glenn fucking Hughes. I am a rocker. I made fame in a rock band. Black radio is never going to play my music as much as I love black music, but my influence in the rock fraternity is immense. So it's my job, if you will, is to carry the message to other young rockers and other fans and friends of mine.
Right.
That I carry that message. You know, if I figured that I think John Noah album is a good album. You know.
Yeah.
But it's really not me. Eric, it's something funny. I want to say. Will the real fucking Glenn Hughes stand up?
I completely understand what you're saying. Yeah.
And Eric, I think you know my work. There's about 5 or 6 of them. I mean, I'm working with Billy Ray Cyrus. I'm recording records with him. I mean, I've done the KLF. I've done house music. I've done hip hop. It's like people might go, "What the fuck? Who is this guy?" Well, I'm Glenn Hughes, that dude from Deep Purple. You know, the guy that had the stuff with Bonamassa and the California Breed, and he had the thing with Chad Smith and Dave Navarro on Soul Mover.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Glenn. Oh, he plays at the Albert Hall with the Symphony in London. Yeah, is that really Glenn Hughes? Yeah, that's him.
So
I'm always like,
sorry, go ahead.
I've never repeated myself. I think, Eric, I've never repeated myself. It's like, it's really because I write so many songs, that it's like, oh fuck, where are we going this time?
Well, that's got to be exhilarating. So, now that you have
exhilarating
this
for me. It's also because I'm really close with Billy Ray, and it's like I go to his house and we're writing some stuff, and he'll say to me, "Play something you wrote last night." No, I'll play him or something, and he'll go, "Ah, damn, we gotta record that." And it's like okay, well, how do we make this how do I spin this into a Billy Ray thing? It's like,
right.
It's remarkable that I can actually mold myself and be represented into the community of country music, because country music is not something that's a facade. Country music is a real entity. It's the biggest American music. American music really is country music.
Right.
So why am I talking about country music? Well, because I work with the country music stuff.
Right.
So it's like, and it's like, but aren't you supposed to be heavy metal, Glenn? Well, I guess that's the one Glenn that can stand up. I guess I have been heavy metal, and I have definitely been, seen with Stevie Wonder a few times. So it's like, what you're talking to a guy that I don't have a problem with who I am, but my close friends say to me, "You're one of the only musicians in the world that can do a little bit of everything." And I think when my new record comes out in the fall, people will hear that's the Glenn Hughes that is finally standing up.
Got a whiplash tongue that is sharp like a razor. With a kill switch, your mind a role manipulator. And you're so alive, I can see you on the marquee. You're an overdrive, but you're looking for the soul key. The man in the middle of a can. Can you cry me a riddle? You're a big phone looking, I can feel your vibration. A dog on the trick, you need a vacation. With your mind and body wealth, now you're living in a typhoon. In a big black car, now you're full of ambition. You're a rock and roll star with a killer condition. You talk so cheap, and I heard it on the grapevine. You better sow what you reap, or you'll be walking on a flat line. The man in the middle, someone can you cry me a riddle? Night of the darkness has fallen. Live and you die in the madness that I got a whip-lock tongue that it shines like a razor. With a kill switch mind, a raw manipulator. And you're so alive, I can see you on the marquee. You're an overdrive, but you're looking for the soul key. The man in the middle, someone can you cry me a riddle? Night of the darkness has fallen. See the light till you open your eyes. See the light till you open your eyes. You're the man. Can you cry me a riddle? Oh, yeah.
Black Country Communion solidified the fact that I have returned to a rock audience.
Right.
Had 4 #1 records with Black Country Communion in Europe. So, we're recording again in January. So, that'll be the 4th one. So, I'm so blessed, Eric, to let you know that there's so much going on in my life that is all because I've been given a gift, freely given a gift from above.
So great.
Freely given a gift. And that gift is the musical soul. I mean, the music just flows through me, man. I have no say-so. It wakes me up in the freaking night.
That's so great.
I wrote a number of songs for Black Country Communion in my sleep. Those things happen to me. People will always call me out. They always call me out because I'm on the fucking internet all the fucking time, and it's like, okay, well, if you could maybe just listen to the music rather than looking at my fucking jeans or my hair or something.
Right.
So it's like, I get it. I'm very thick-skinned, but I'm very loyal to my fans and my fan base and the human fucking race.
Right. Let me ask you this. I phrase it as a rebirth. This energy that you have now, did you have that before the other Glenn? Like in the early Purple Trapeze days, were you the same way?
Yeah. Look, I want to tell you something that's a real true story, Eric. It seems like you know my life. I didn't take my first drink till I was 18. I went in a blackout. So I knew that drinking wasn't for me.
Right.
And then, sort of like in the Purple era, I started to drink brandy with John Law because John liked to drink fine brandy. And then all of a sudden, you meet some rich guys that want to pound cocaine down your nose. And, I can do some of this and I can do some of that. And I think I'm okay. Then the band breaks up. I think I can stop doing all this stuff when I'm 30. No, I'll stop when I'm 40. What I'm trying to say to you is that my behavior, for a good decade and a half was ill-appropriate because I didn't really know I was an addict.
Right.
People were dying around me. My friend John Bonham dies. Tommy Boland's dead.
Mm-hmm.
John Belushi, my friend, dies. It's like, and nothing was tapping me on the shoulder going, hello, you're going to be next. So it's like, when it finally happened to me, let's just say the other Glenn, when I came out of Betty Ford and I was sober enough to realize that how lucky I was to survive, I started making real records.
Right. That's awesome. What can you say about the BCC record? Have you been writing stuff for that?
Joe and I are getting together next week. I don't know when you're going to put this out. Joe and I are getting together next week. I'm about to start my USA tour. We're playing in Pennsylvania if you want to come. We start my USA tour on the 9th of August, and then so I'm got 2 weeks before we go.
Right.
So Joe and I are writing next week, and what we're doing, Eric, is Joe and I are we're doing what we did on Black Country 1. Is that I get together with Joe at my house, and you know, Joe and I kind of wrote a lot of that album together.
Right.
I think I wrote more songs on Black Country 2, and on Black Country 3 I wrote a lot of songs. But Joe and I had dinner, and I said we need to do more collaborations, you know.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I did bring a lot of music in alone to BCC because Joe's too damn busy to write. But he's a great fucking songwriter.
Awesome.
You know, Song of Yesterday's one of his greatest songs, and it's one of my favorite songs of BCC, and he wrote it, and I helped him finish it. But, you know, when I listen to Black Country, a song that Joe and I wrote together, or The Great Divide, I'm going, that's a great song. That's my arms the hairs on my arms are standing up as I talk about The Great Divide. Joe and I wrote that song on 11 o'clock on Tuesday morning, and it was like in the studio, and we were just the two of us in there, and we started to chug these chords, and I started to sing, you know, I'm on the Great Divide. It just came out of fucking nowhere. So when we got together this March, we had a bit of a love fest. Joe and I had never fallen out, and we fell in love with the idea of Black Country Communion of being a band of brothers, like he says on the DVD.
Mm-hmm.
None of us have ever fallen out.
That's awesome.
You know, I've been through some surgeries in the last few years where it's been, you know, my life's changed a little bit, but as far as family and love, we've never fallen out. And, you know, look, Black Country Communion will be a band that makes records from time to time, and will do shows whenever possible. My solo career comes well for us now. I'm touring the world for the next year, and Joe does the same. So all the people out there expecting Glenn's going to make this announcement, all Glenn's doing is saying we're making a record and let's see what happens. We're just friends.
Right. You're announcing that you'll have an announcement.
Yes, and you know, I can say it to you right now, Eric. I hope I don't get, you know, disappoint the family, but we're making a record the first week of January.
That's great.
And when I say making a record, I mean completing a record. Between Jan 4th and Jan 11th, a whole record, everything will be fucking done.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that
we work on
the last DVDs.
We work with Kevin Shirley on a restricted time schedule.
Right.
I don't know if you know anything about BCC, the way we record. We record in 8 or 9 days, and everything is done. So I always like to come in fully ready and prepared and ready to go, and there's a lot of excitement about this record, but in reality, expectation is high, but it's sometimes you have to have no expectation. You just have to go in and flow with it, because the music flows through us so beautifully, and there's a lot of love. When I look at Derek and Joe and Jason, I have a lot of love for these guys musically and as people. So there's so much love in the room, and with Kevin Shirley producing it, you really can't go wrong, you know.
Right. Yep. And it, you know, that probably is one of the big elements of the success is, you know, from this side of the stage, that is so obvious, and there's no facade about it. It just feels natural.
There's no facade, because Joe and I are talking about what the next album should be, which I can't really tell you, but, you know, I just think Black Country Communion is a genre that is going to stay the same. I don't think there's going to be anything completely like knew that we won't rewrite anything, but I think it's a genre that you can hang your hat on and go, well, this is BCC, for Christ's sake.
Right.
Like when you hear AC/DC, you know it's fucking AC/DC, or when you hear the Rolling Stones or the Who, you know it's them. BCC will sound just like BCC. We're not going to come up, playing, like Egyptian music or anything. Nothing strange going to happen here.
Right.
But Joey's, in my opinion, and I've played with them all. Remember, Eric, I've played with every great guitar player. Joe, in my opinion, right now, he's on top. He's fucking, and he's a wonderful human being.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I got my hands full. I'm touring. The album comes out the first week of November. Then, I get home at Christmas. Then I have a week free. Then I'm in BCC World.
Right.
And then I'm off again. The next American tour is next March. And then, like I say, I can't really announce anything other than Black Country or making a record. And that's all I can say.
Right.
Because we'll have to see what happens.
Right on. So nothing about your new record other than it's coming out in November.
Other than it's finished, and it's for those people that want to know, it is a Glenn Hughes rock album. This is the heaviest. In fact, if you listen to my last record, it wasn't heavy at all. It was a real funk album. This is as heavy as I've ever been. In parts, it's as heavy as the Fused album with Tony. It's in parts is as heavy as Fused. In parts, and there's no spins on this record. There's only one slow song, and the rest of it is it's fucking heavy. And I just wanted to make a record that was for the genre of rock fans, the fans that give me a great life. I have amazing fans. I hate calling them fans because fans is like fanatics, and I call them my friends. I have a lot of friends that follow me, and I'm so happy that I can announce I'm making a great fucking rock record that it's for them.
That's awesome. Yeah, fans has like this implicit like hierarchy to it, right? Where friends means we're all just humans.
Eric, I'm very thick-skinned. I'm super sensitive, but and I don't know how old. It seems to me you're not young, so. You got to remember, I'm from the 60s and 70s where there was no internet and there was no people chit-chatting, and
right.
How do kids deal with comments on the internet? You got to be so thick-skinned and older to understand.
Crazy.
It's just chit-chat. It's just the more profile you get, and listen to me, I'm talking about people that are well more famous than me, get fucking murdered on the internet. It's like none of my fucking business. Eric, it's none of my business what people write or say about me, whether it's good or bad or not. My business is to go out and make music that obviously will give people a lot of time. That's
awesome. Just one sort of final question, and then I'll let you go. Is you said Stevie Wonder's a friend. I think he called you his favorite white singer, right? Having said that, are there any like either pinch yourself moments or people that you worked with where it didn't quite sort out, maybe Stevie or anything like that, like performance wise or? I
get it. I get it a lot because, if I'm singing in front of people, I get it mainly from fans. I get it, I travel the world and I go to see people and play to people and I see, I'm told this by my people that work for me. They say they have the Glenn moment where they don't know if they've ever heard it before. When they hear what I'm doing, the lights go on. It's like, and I get it from other artists I play and sing with.
Right.
I've said before, Eric, I love sharing the mic with other singers, and I like singing with Grace Potter at the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's like, Grace and I got along great. It's stuff like that I really like, and singing with my friend Robin Zander and Steven Tyler and Joe Elliott when we do Kings of Chaos. It's like kind of a brotherhood, we're all so lucky.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, sir. New record in November, new BCC coming next year, and you're touring through the rest of the year. Well, your schedule is tight, man. You're like USA,
I am.
South America.
You know, it's tight and it's well constructed. I have an amazing team, management and agent, and something is happening in my life. I can tell you what it is, bro. Gratitude.
Awesome.
Gratitude. I was with Nicky Six, my friend, last month. We were playing in France, and we had a good afternoon of gratitude. You know, talk about two guys that were out of their minds in the 80s.
Yeah.
And here we are now, sort of blessed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, it's awesome. It's exciting to see.
Again, yeah. I'm a man. Obviously, you know that I've been in recovery for a long time, and I'm so grateful that I've kept on track and helped others, and I'm a bit of a messenger for people. So that's why I'm here, man. Every person counts in my life.
Doesn't get any better than that, my friend. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The website is glennhughes.com. That's where all the dates are and stuff. Anything else you want to mention that we didn't discuss?
That I love all the people across this planet, whether they've heard my music or not. Whether I'll shake their hands or I don't. Music is the healer. I said it at the Hall of Fame. I say it every time I meet people, that it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. You know, certain people at the end of the day, and on their own, they probably want to get home, put their headphones on, and get into the music, because we live in troubled times. We live in troubled times, and music is the only freaking healer, because pills ain't going to fix it. War's not going to fix it. But music certainly really helps.
Don't quit
Thanks again for listening to this conversation with Glenn Hughes. As mentioned, you can find him on glennhughes.com. He's got lots of tour dates coming up, new record, all kinds of goodies. He's got a really robust website, so go check that out. You can find more Pods and Sods on our website, which is podsodcast.com. A bunch of interview episodes, all kinds of episodes that Craig, my cohort, and I have done through the years. I can't even guess at a number at this point, but there's a lot of stuff out there, so go check it out. You can find us on iTunes. I think you can find us on Stitcher. You can find us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/podssods. Wherever you find us, click some stars, click a thumbs up, write a review. Any kind words are always very much appreciated. So thank you for that, and thanks again for listening. I will leave you with some words of wisdom that I always close with from Mr. Bill Hicks. Thank you.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride, and we kill those people. Shut him up. We have a lot invested in this ride. Shut him up. Look at my furrows of worry. Look at my big bank account and my family. Has to be real. It's just a ride. But we always kill those good guys who try and tell us that. You ever notice that? And let the demons run amok? But it doesn't matter, because it's just a ride. And we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love instead see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace.